Hello, what's up, and welcome to the Weekenders. This is the show where we love to talk about football. I'm Max, joined as always by Lexi and Bobby here and today we're joined by Pat Lane. You might recognize his face and voice from Pat's Nation Network, and he's a writer for Pat's Pulpit. And if it wasn't apparent by all the Pats that I'm using, Pat is a Patriots fan, and we're going to talk about the AFC East today. So we're so happy to have Pat, and so happy to talk about football. We're getting into OTAs now. We're slowly kind of creeping into that transition from NBA to NFL, but yeah, Pat, thanks for joining us, man. We're so excited to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. As far as I know, there's no other sports going on right now. So football is the only thing on my mind right now. Nothing happened. There was no basketball season or hockey season, and so just completely looking forward towards the football season.
I don't keep up with like the baseball in terms of like the standings and stuff. How are the Red Sox doing?
They might. I'm not even sure. They might be in last place in the AL East, but they're like I think a game over 500. So it's like I think they'd like be in first place in the AL Central, but the AL East is all good, so they're in last place. You know what I mean?
I'm a Tigers fan.
It's not untrue.
I know. I'm not. Just a stray I wasn't prepared for so early.
Awesome. Well, that's great. I think that's the first time we've ever even like attempted to talk baseball on this podcast. So that's really good.
There it was talking baseball for 30 seconds.
Good to get to the Red Sox are above 500. But all right, cool. Well, yeah, let's jump right in. This is the AFC East preview. So the AFC East, I think, is going to be one of the most interesting divisions in the NFL this year. I mean, I think we're going to be talking about the AFC East all year, particularly because Aaron Rodgers, who I feel like, you know, in my lifetime of sort of watching Aaron Rodgers' career, like these last couple of years, like he has never been talked about as much as, you know, he has been in the last couple of years. Yeah. And, you know, I remember even, you know, when he was winning Super Bowls and stuff and, you know, or when he won a Super Bowl and, you know, was making those deep playoff runs, I feel like now these last couple of years have just been so much talk about stuff off the field and his decisions on the field. And now the dust has settled a little bit now that he's signed, was it a sign or a trade? I can't remember. Anyway, he's on the Jets. Yeah. He's on the Jets now. Traded. Okay, that's what I thought. Traded to the Jets now. Very eerily similar to the Brett Favre thing, but we talked about that already. He's got a little bit of you know, he's got a lot to prove, and he's got things that he wants to obviously accomplish now that he's in a new environment and on a new team. And let's just start there with New York and Aaron Rodgers. I want to know, Pat, since you're our guest, I'll let you take this first. Sure. How far do you think Aaron Rodgers will take the Jets this year?
It's an interesting question. You know, I mean, I actually went to Lambeau last year to watch the Patriots play the Packers, and it was an incredible experience. But, you know, while you're there, you're talking to some Packers fans, and they were kind of sick of it. They were kind of sick of Rodgers and ready to move on. You know, and of course, they might be, you know, not happy about that when they see what Jordan Love can do on the field if he struggles. But, you know, I wonder, like, is Rodgers cooked? Is Rodgers as good as he was, right? We talk about Rodgers as if he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, but is he actually still a top 5 quarterback in the NFL? I don't know the answer to that question. And so that to me is going to be a big part of it. Now, look, are his weapons in New York better than they were in Green Bay, even though he brought all of his receivers over with him from Green Bay? Yeah, I think so. I mean, you just put Garrett Wilson on that team and you have a legitimate certified number 1 receiver, you know, offensive rookie of the year last year, and showed, you know, he won offensive rookie of the year last year with the worst quarterback play in the league by a wide margin and he was still offensive rookie of the year. So, that's impressive in and of itself. And so with Rodgers there, I think that's a huge improvement. I don't know. I mean, look, they could win the division. They could win the Super Bowl. They could get to the Super Bowl. They could finish 6-11. Like, I don't like, I have no idea what we're going to get from Rodgers. And, I don't know, right? Favre used the Jets as leverage, right? He signed with the Jets, won 8 out of his first 11 or something like that, and then tanked the end of the year. They missed the playoffs, and he went to the Vikings the next year, right? So, like, is that going to happen with Aaron Rodgers? I don't think so. But it didn't work out the last time they brought a Green Bay Packers, legend to their team. So that doesn't mean it won't work out this time. I think this team is significantly better on paper than those Jets were. I think they have a better coach. I think they have a significantly better defense. And I think they have probably a better offense as well. So do I think they can make a push? I do. But I also look at it and say they might only go 9-8. Like, I don't know. I don't know if people have faith in Saleh. I don't know if I do or not. Like, that remains to be seen. And the way Rodgers has been the last few years, I don't know how he's going to do with that New York media. Everyone asking him questions. He doesn't seem to do well with the media asking him questions. Sure, he'll go on the Pat McAfee show and talk when he can kind of spin the narrative and talk about what he wants to talk about. But when there's reporters breathing down his neck, asking him questions, and we're talking about he was in Green Bay. Now he's in New York. I don't know how that's going to go. So I have no idea, but it's the Jets. So I have no confidence in them, zero confidence in them that they'll actually do it right, but they might prove me wrong.
Yeah. I mean, when you're dealing with a toss-up
show thing is like easy to.
My bad.
Oh no, I was just gonna say going to the Pat McAfee show is easy to do when the Green Bay media is just gonna throw you softballs and you can kind of like go on another platform to say your own thing. But then, like you said, Pat, the New York media is a completely different beast, and I think like it'll be interesting to see how he deals with that when, especially if they don't win right away or if things kind of get rough. But yeah, Bobby, go ahead. My bad.
Yeah, no worries. And not only that, but the fan base is so quick to turn on you. You have a very, very small leeway. So, if you start off right off the jump here with the Jets and things don't go well, in Green Bay, they might, grumble, might be upset, but they're not going to boo you. Now, that's a totally different story with the Jets. I could see that if things start off bad, I could see the vibes getting immediately just horrible. And my thing is, the Rodgers of a couple years ago, the Randall Cobb of a couple years ago, yeah, this could work. It could be good. But I just don't have a lot of confidence in this Jets team. And, I don't have a lot of confidence in, this thing sticking together. There will be rough patches. Right. And it feels like, especially with how inconsistent Rodgers, especially was last year, I don't know. I think that's a tough horse to tie your cart to. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it.
Well, you talk about them starting off slow. I mean, Bills, Cowboys, Patriots, and who's the last one? Chiefs. That's their first 4 games. I could easily see them going 1-3 in their first 4, and now the New York media's turned on them and saying, "Oh my God, we brought Rodgers over here, and it's the same old story. And we starting off 1-3, and we're last place in the division, and what, blah, 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 and all this other stuff." And now all of a sudden, that's rolling on him, and he's like, "Screw these guys, man! Like, I'm out of here. I'll go somewhere else."
Yeah. I mean, as a Lions fan, I've had my fair share over the years of Aaron Rodgers, and I do think that I'm not saying that I want it to be, but it is a better situation, I think, than Green Bay. It was kind of like wore thin, like you said. The fans were very much tired of it by the time he was, but that's what he does. He doesn't really care. I guess I could kind of admire the fact that he doesn't give really a shit about anything or anybody else, but going on those shows, the ones that he chooses, he drags things out. New Yorkers are not going to want to put up with that. You got the Lambeau, the Wisconsin people. They're like, "Oh, we love you, blah, blah, blah." But, I just feel like New Yorkers aren't going to deal with the behavior that he does if he gets mad or upset about something or if he doesn't like how the fans are acting. So it's going to be a lot of pressure in those first, you said 4 games. That's a big halt to jump right into the AFC with. But if he's cut out for it, like everyone always says he is, then I guess we won't have a problem.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think the easy answer to the question is like Aaron Rodgers can make this Jets team a playoff team because of the infrastructure. I mean, obviously the talent, but also he does have weapons. He does have a defensive coach that can coach a good defense. They've given him an offensive line, so they have the tools that this team is kind of built to make a playoff run. If Aaron Rodgers is like the Aaron Rodgers we saw, 2 years ago, and or even last year's Aaron Rodgers. Honestly, I don't think he has to be spectacular or MVP level for them to make the playoffs. I honestly think he can be a little bit below Aaron Rodgers standards and be fine, because below, Aaron Rodgers standards is still a very good quarterback. So,
right.
I don't know. I don't really trust what they will do beyond just making the playoffs, because even in Green Bay with Devontae Adams and all the stuff that the Packers had, and when they were going away with the NFC North and winning all those games, like he still sort of hasn't been a good playoff quarterback in a while.
Right.
But I think for Jets fans, I think he has the ability to make that team a playoff contender or a playoff team. And for Jets fans who have not been that has not been the case for them in a long time, I think that'll be enough to make the fans happy. But speaking of pressure, let's move on to another big storyline in the AFC East before we kind of get into these.
Wait, Max, before you do,
Max,
Max, just one quick thing. If I'm a Jets fan, the one thing I'm holding on to, I said it, they had the worst quarterback play in the league last year, by far. They finished 7-10. Yeah. Now, I know the schedule is harder this year than it was last year, but you finished 7-10 with the worst quarterback play in the league. Now you're getting Aaron Rodgers. At the very least, you're getting a significant upgrade at quarterback. Now, again, who knows what the off-field stuff is going to bring? Who knows what's going to happen in the locker room with him? Whatever, right? But at the very least, you say, well, Aaron Rodgers, compared to the garbage we had last year, has got to be good enough for 2 or 3 wins, right? And if you can now turn that into, 9-8, 10-7, now you give you a shot at making the playoffs, and maybe even more depending on how things go. So if I'm a Jets fan, that's how I'm looking at it, saying, I mean, Rodgers got to get us a few wins at least. And so, the defense is still the same. And that's kind of where, again, I don't trust them to do that because they're the Jets, and I don't trust the Jets to do anything. But if I were a Jets fan, that's what I'd be holding out hope for.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's fair. Jets, I think that's going to be an interesting story for the entire year. Another, I think, really just big, glaring storyline in this division. And, we're trying to, for the interest of time, I picked out a couple. I think we could have discussions about big storylines for every team in the AFC East. I think that's how interesting this division is with, the Dolphins and even the Patriots. But I want to focus on a really obvious one here, and that's the Buffalo Bills. Now, I don't love talking about this at the beginning of the year as opposed to like closer to the playoffs, but it is, an expectation that the Bills at least make the Super Bowl, this year. I think it's a Super Bowl or bust year for them. Let's be honest. They just put Josh Allen on the cover of Madden. Like there's not much bigger signs of, the NFL kind of wanting Josh Allen and the Bills to, be face of the league type team than that. So, Super Bowl year for the Bills. I mean, in your guys' opinion, do you think this is the year they finally get there? Yes or no?
I mean, if we're going with the Bills versus the field, you've got to kind of go with the field. I know that's not exactly the question, but I need to see Buffalo get it done. Last year, it was lined up as good as it gets, and they absolutely blew it at home. Having Cincy at home, your stadium, great Buffalo weather, of course. It was teed up for them, and they absolutely just laid an egg. The excuses are out. It's not like they're lost a close one at Arrowhead, which they did a billion times.
Right.
That was set up for them, and they dropped the ball. I think they're going to be very good, as we'll get into when we're talking about win totals. But I don't have a lot of faith in them getting it done with how good Cincinnati's been, how good Kansas City's been. I just feel like those teams, when it comes to the clutch gene, that sounds like such a crappy first take type of thing to say, but when they get things done, they get it done. And I like them to execute over Buffalo when it really comes down to it, regardless of where they're playing. So yeah, I'm going to say no. It's just kind of the history of Buffalo. Getting close, not getting it done.
Yeah. Look, I agree with you 100%. I do. I think that for me personally, it's one of those things that I look at it and just say, I'm not comfortable picking them to win a championship, right? I don't think that that's the case. And look, maybe they will. I could be wrong, but I see it with Kansas City and I see it with Cincinnati and I see what happens, but I don't really see it with Buffalo. And it's that end of the year kind of, and look, he needs some time. And I understand that Josh still needs some time. He led the league in turnovers last year, I believe, at the quarterback position. And so, it's one of those things where that's going to happen, right? Those things are going to happen. You take the good with the bad because Allen can do so much incredible stuff. You live with the other stuff. But at a certain point, like there comes a time where it says, all right, now you got to put up and shut up in these games. And they haven't. And again, 2 years ago, 13 seconds. I mean, that's gut wrenching. That just absolutely destroys you. Right. But they still would have had to beat Cincinnati and they couldn't do that this year. And so, what makes you think they would have done it last year? Right. So I think that then you kind of go back and forth and say, hey, are they going to be there? And you think that part of the AFC East, is going to include, right, 3 of those guys. Yeah, no, I feel the same way about the Bills, right? Obviously lost at home last year, 13 seconds 2 years ago, right, which is heartbreaking. But again, if you win that game, you still got to play the Bengals, right? And so I don't know if I trust Buffalo. Josh Allen had the most turnovers in the league last year from the quarterback position. And so how much do you trust him in those big moments, right? And can that team get over the hump? And honestly, can the coach get the team over the hump? I guess is the question that then you got to ask yourselves, right? So, I don't know. They're obviously a great team, but you need something more in those big moments than just being a great team. And they haven't shown that, right? And so you have to think that, the final 4 of the AFC is probably going to include, Mahomes, Burrow, and Allen. You would assume. Who's that 4th QB? We don't know who that 4th QB is going to be, but you would think that they're going to be in that final 4. The question is, can they get out of that final 4? Hasn't happened for them the last few years. Doesn't mean it won't happen for them this year. But I'm not necessarily putting all my eggs in that basket. If I, and Bob, you said it, like, am I going to bet the Bills or the field? And I'm picking the field if that's the case. And I might even pick the field in just the AFC and not even include the NFC either. So.
Yeah, you're good. Lexi, you're good.
Okay. Yeah. So every year, the last couple of years, I've been like all team Josh Allen. Oh, the Bills are gonna do this, they're gonna be strong. And it's just they've fallen flat. Like you said, they have not done what they needed to do when the time came down to it. And I do think that Josh Allen can clean some of his act up, but then, like Pat said, you're gonna face the Bengals again. And they're just such a hot team right now. So, yes, the Bills have a chance to go to the Super Bowl, but I can't sit here and say that I think that's going to happen when they just have not proved, when the time comes and when it matters, that they've just kind of fallen flat. So, I'm not really sure about that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean they've got a lot of
Yeah.
pressure, and I don't want to make too much out of the Madden cover, but like I was really surprised. Like, I mean, out of all the pressure the Bills have now to get to the Super Bowl, and it's like, all right, we're gonna put Josh Allen on this video game, and I know like Josh Allen is like, especially for Madden, like is such a cool player. I like get why you want him on the cover. The Bill, he's the first Bills player to ever be on the cover, so it's like super cool in a lot of ways, but that is just so much pressure to put on your team. I mean, not just because of the Madden cover, but in addition to all the other pressure, and now like you've got this team. I mean, this quarterback, this coach. They might be there for a while, but a lot of the pieces that Stephon Diggs and a lot of the pieces that are kind of like making this current iteration of the Bills, like it kind of feels like this is sort of the time where they have to really go for it. So it'll be interesting to see how that pressure affects them. But that gives us a smooth transition into our win-loss predictions, because the first team we're going to talk about is the Buffalo Bills. Now the Vegas line is at 10.5. No surprises there. Last year they were 13-3. And obviously had a good regular season as they've had for the last couple of years. So, I mean, we all have the Bills over 10.5 this year. Does anyone want to we don't have to all kind of speak on it. We know that everyone knows the Bills are a good team, but does anyone want to kind of expound on the reason why they think they'll, be at least still a really good regular season team?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind, I mean, look,
Yeah,
for
sure.
me personally, I just think that 10.5 is easy. That's easy money for them. Like that, if they're finishing 10-7, it's a disaster of a season for them. And, look, we kind of bashed Josh Allen a little bit. Just, again, playing devil's advocate, if I'm a Bills fan, I'm looking at it the same way I'm looking at Nikola Jokic. Jokic turned 28 this year. Josh Allen's turned 27 this year. And of course, very different players, but Allen couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat when he got in the NFL. And now all of a sudden he's getting better. He's 27. He's entering the prime of his career, right? And so maybe now this is when we see him take that next step in the playoffs, similar to what we've seen Jokic do this year. So, but I just think in the regular season, man, like they've been dominating the regular season the last few years. I just think 11 wins is easy for them, right? And it's not even, I mean, now you're talking about 17 games. If they don't finish at least 10-7, I mean, they got to finish at least 11-6, if not 12-5, to have it even be a respectable season, as far as what they're expected to do. So I think if you're taking the under on the Bills, you think they're going to take a massive step back this year. And while I think they might not be as good as they were last year, I mean, 11-6 is easy.
Yeah, I love that comparison to Joker. If it was 11.5, I probably would take the under, because the AFC East is going to be better than it was last year. The Jets are going to be better. I mean, I think, and the AFC East, I think you guys have to play the AFC West, and I want to say the NFC East.
It's
NFC
the
East.
NFC East.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that's a tough draw
schedule.
for the entire division. But 10.5, I like. The Bills winning 11 games at least, if not more. I think, I don't see the, we talk about pressure and all that stuff, but you still got Josh Allen, you still got a good coaching staff, and a team that, is tough to play at their place, and can win on the road, obviously. So, I mean, I think this is, like you said, Pat, I think 11 wins is very, very easy for this team.
Yeah, that comment about 10-7 hammered it home. 10-7 or worse. Woof. Yeah, disaster mode if that's the case. So yeah, give me that over.
For sure. Well, let's talk about the Jets. The Jets their line is 9.5, so one basic makes one win, kind of under the line for the Bills. Last year they were 7-10, like Pat talked about before. Now you've got Aaron Rodgers. You think that counts for a couple more wins? Maybe that 10-7 range is pretty good. I'll just go ahead and say I've got the over. I think 10-7 for the Jets is pretty doable. This team's got a good foundation. And I think Aaron Rodgers, even if there's just like, a bunch of drama and every week there's a Aaron Rodgers headline, I just think talent wise, like it's 3 more games, right? Like, and again, we just talked about how tough the schedule was,
Yeah.
and I mean, I took a look at it and carefully counted, like, all right, like if I was going to do the schedule based on how the teams performed last year, like I could see 10 wins. Their first 6, and you talked about it earlier, Pat, but their first 6 games before the bye week are going to tell us a lot about who this team is, because you've got to play both of the Super Bowl participants in the Chiefs and the Eagles. Then you got to go to Denver, who you expect to be better than they were last year, with Sean Payton now there, and maybe Russell Wilson has a bounce back year. And then you got New England at home, Buffalo at home on Monday Night Football, and then going to Dallas. So I think we'll know a lot about where this team is headed once they hit their bye week in Week 7, and then the schedule will get a little bit easier. But I think with the team's foundation, Aaron Rodgers' ability to just make things happen on his own, and this is kind of an underrated thing about the Jets, but I love the fact that Robert Saleh now, as the head coach, all he has to do now is just focus on the defensive side of the ball. Last year, he was having to coach Zach Wilson and Mike White and all the quarterback situations that they were having. Focus on that and focus on, coaching up the defense, which he did a good job of. But this year, Aaron Rodgers, with all that experience that he has, he's really like, what Peyton Manning was for all those years in Indianapolis. Like, he can coach the offense himself. Obviously, they have lots of offensive coaching staff, but I think for the first time since Robert Saleh has been on the Jets, he can just take a breath, let his quarterback manage things on the offensive side of the ball, and Robert Saleh can double down and focus on his specialty, which is defense, which he's done a good job of so far. Obviously, San Francisco, he did a great job there. I think that aspect of it, from a coaching balance angle, I really like for them, and so I think it's a slight over 9.5. I think they probably are right around 10 wins, maybe 11.
Yeah. I mean, you guys, just based on the notes, it looked like you guys all had the over. I took the under on them. I think 9 wins makes sense. My hesitation with Rodgers is that you look at last year, and I know last year, there was issues going on in the locker room and everything else, but they lost 7 out of 8 games in the middle of the season last year, right? The last game of the season, they have a chance to get into the playoffs against a Lions team that is done. Lions season is over. The Lions know their season is over, and they go into Lambeau and beat the Packers on the last game of the season. And you just look at that and say, how the hell do you let that happen? And it doesn't really matter if you're Aaron Rodgers. Like, fine, the team wasn't as good, but like, if you're that good, if you're Aaron Rodgers and you're that good, you feel like, the Packers aren't as good as the Jets are, but they're not that bad, right? It's not like he was carrying a crap team with him. And so, I don't necessarily trust Rodgers. I do think if it were 8.5, I'd probably take the over. 9.5, I took the under. I kind of feel that 9 and 8 kind of seems like the right spot for me, especially if you start out slow, like we talked about. Well, now all of a sudden, is Rodgers pissed about things? Is the locker room not as pleased about stuff? Is the coaching staff kind of getting after Rodgers? Is Rodgers' personality wearing on the rest of the team? So like now you have this turmoil in there, and who knows what happens. And so I just think that could spell disaster for them. Then again, Tom Brady didn't play great in 2019, and then won the Super Bowl with Tampa in 2020. So like I could be totally wrong, but it just that's kind of how I see it going in New York this year.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pressure on Aaron Rodgers, so I think it's either going to go really well or really bad. I don't think there's going to be a middle ground here, but I had the under, actually. I think I'm about at 8-9 wins, given that things go pretty decent because you got, like, you said, a new coach, a new scheme. Yeah, he pulled some players from the Packers, but this isn't Green Bay anymore, and this isn't the NFC North. Granted that the Lions own them the last couple of years, but it's just not going to be the same scenario. And I think it's going to be a little bit of a wake up call for Aaron Rodgers, but he's good enough that he can get his shit together and do well. I don't know if it happens or not. I'm still just up in the air, but I'm about 8 or 9 wins in there, so I've got the under on that.
Yeah, that early schedule is just so brutal. I'm going very, very under. I'm just going to go under on this one. Okay. To me, given the New York situation, the fan base going all in, and yeah, look, they bottomed out last year mid-season, but like at that point, it was still like kind of a young team. You're still developing. We only won 4 games last year. Now you're all in with Rodgers. This is winning time for them, and there's zero patience. If things get bad early, which I think they will, I think the New York culture will divide that locker room, which you add a bunch of veterans in, start blaming the youth, who have done a good job of developing. That rifts everything. You got a guy like Rodgers who might just decide to leave and either, go on a peyote trip in the desert, or like start an avocado farm. One or the other. That could happen. That's just there's just so much unpredictability here, and it's the Jets. And I know they're improving, but making a big risk like that can just kind of throw everything out of whack. And you're going with probably one of the most currently emotionally unstable quarterbacks we've dealt with in the past couple of years. I don't know. I see it going really pretty tough. The Jets usually don't have good things happen to them.
I think the underrated thing about the New York dynamic, and I think this works both ways, the Giants were a playoff team last year, right? So now it's like, all right, the Jets fans want to. They've got Aaron Rodgers now. You got the offensive and defensive rookies of the year. You got a solid team. Now you expect to win because the team, on the other side of the hallway, just went to the playoffs. And now they're feeling good about themselves, and so and you like Brian Daboll over there as well. So I think for both sides, like the pressure's on because you don't want to be the only team in New York, not going to or not competing at least, for week in and week out when the other team is. So I think that'll be an interesting angle as well. But yeah, I guess I'm the lone wolf on the over for the Jets. We'll see how that plays out. Sorry, Pat, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about your Patriots. Let's get into it. Vegas has them at at 7.5. Not surprising, but the lowest line in the division. Last year, the Patriots went 8-9, which is, Pat, feel free to expand on this, but I think, considering all the stuff that at least came out about how much the offense struggled with in the coaching system that Belichick set up on that side of the ball, and then just all the stuff that happened last year, it seems like you wouldn't really realize, oh yeah, the Patriots were just a game under 500, or yeah. So so this year they're looking to change that, but Pat, you're for this year, like I think all of us had the Patriots under that 7.5. You're the lone wolf on the over. Tell us why you're convinced the Patriots are going to go over. You're not just a homer. You believe this team is gonna get over 7.5.
If you want to make some money, bet the Patriots over. Honestly, look, here's the deal, right? A Bill Belichick coach team hasn't lost 10 games or more since the year 2002. Okay, that's a long time. That's old enough. That team is now old enough to drink. Okay, And so, you look at that and you think, all right, it's been 21 years since they finished with a record that was under, that had 10 wins or more, 10 losses or more. I'm sorry. In 2020, with Cam Newton, who couldn't throw a football, literally couldn't throw the ball. They went 7-9. Somehow they went 7-9. Absolutely ridiculous that team went 7-9. That's one of the worst offenses I've ever seen in my entire life. They went 7-9. Last year, with Matt Patricia and Joe Judge running the offense, they went 8-9. Somehow, and got screwed in Cincinnati and fumbled the ball at the end of the game, almost won that game. They had the nightmare in Las Vegas. The Patriots could have easily won 10 games last year with, again, one of the worst offenses I've ever seen in my entire life, right? And so you start looking at it and saying, okay, well, did they get better this year? They did. You would think Tyquan Thornton takes a step up this year, hopefully, even if he's just a little bit better. God bless you. Even if he's just a little bit better over there. And, for me personally, I just look at it and think the defense is going to be a little bit better than it was last year. The offense should be significantly better just with the improvement of Bill O'Brien. And I know people think, well, Mac Jones is getting a bad rap right now because they saw what happened last year. And I think the more stuff that comes out about what was going on in that locker room last year, I mean, look, they would run plays all week long. They would install plays all week long. And then they'd get to Friday and they'd be like, nah, that's not going to, no, it's not going to work. Let's do something different. And it's like, it's Friday. Like, what do you mean? Let's do something different. So like, it was just complete dysfunction on the offensive side of the football. And at the very least, Bill O'Brien gives you that back this year, right? Are they going to win the Super Bowl? No. Are they going to win the division? No. But if they don't finish at least 8-9, it would be a supreme disappointment. I have them finishing 10-7 or 11-6. I know that you probably think that's insane, but when you start going down the list of the teams they play, I think they split with the Jets. I'm sorry, I think they split with the Dolphins, and I wouldn't be surprised if they at least split with the Jets. They might even be able to sneak one away from Buffalo. So that's when you start looking at it. That's when you start getting a 9-8, 11. 9-8 to 11-6 if you can pull off some of those wins. But I just think that, and the Chargers, by the way, everyone's not automatically calls that a loss for the Chargers. Patriots played the Chargers the last 2 years against Justin Herbert. It's worked out pretty well for them. So I think that people are counting out the Patriots, which is totally fine. And what we saw of Mac Jones last year was bad, really bad. But I think now with an actual offensive coordinator, an actual quarterbacks coach, and an actual offensive line coach, none of which they had last year, I think their offense gets significantly better just because of that. And I think their offensive line will be better than it was last year as well. So all of those things together with a team, with a defense that I still think will be top 5 again, lead you to, a fringe playoff team at the very worst, in my opinion.
So I've always been, I've always appreciated Belichick. My dad's a Patriots fan, but
He's a good man.
He is. It's very true. And normally I'd always be like, I don't ever want to bet against Bill. I don't. And we were sitting here talking about it, and I had the under, and I just feel like I'll probably regret going against him. I really will. But just with the draft that happened, I'm still kind of scratching my head. I mean, you kind of be scratching your head a little bit too, right? So I don't know. I'm not sure that it's going to be enough to get those wins. I think last year was one of the worst seasons in Bill's career, right? With the way he finished. Yeah. I don't know that that's over yet. I hope not for your sake. I don't want him to be going, on the down on his end of his career, but just some things just aren't making sense. And I just don't know if it's as easy to continue that without Tom Brady, without that quarterback that has led you and been the leader out there on the field, not only the one, dropping all these crazy dimes or crazy throws, but just someone that you could rely on to get the job done, to get out there and get those wins. Or 2-minute drill, Tom was the one that was going to get that for you. But I don't know. We'll see, but hope for the best for your sake.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I also had the under, but I gotta say that was a very convincing speech from Pat there, and it's making me rethink everything.
Right.
Just looking at their schedule, their toughest games all in Foxborough. I feel like that is a big plus. Bill O'Brien coming in, obviously you have the connection with Mac Jones. You have the connection from working with Belichick in the past. I could see an improvement. I just can't shake the feeling that Rome's burning and it just ain't going to be the same. But I could be wrong. This I feel like is the pivotal season where either there's a revival and things are going to be all right, or maybe party's over.
No, well, that's a great point, because I do think, like, if they finish 6-11 or 7-10 this year, all of a sudden we're looking around saying, "Oh boy, like this is the end for Belichick," and certainly the end for Mac Jones. I think that, then that becomes pretty clear that he's not the guy. I will say, Lex, as you brought up the draft, right? I think the Patriots crushed the draft, in my personal opinion. And I know that people wanted offensive players, and I get that. I totally do. But they needed a number one wide receiver, right? Is what they really needed. You draft that guy in the first round or you don't draft him. Like, you're not getting that guy later on in the draft. They didn't really have a number one top flight wide receiver this year. Christian Gonzalez, to me, has a chance to come in and be a top 15 corner in the NFL day one. He's got the skills. He has the, if you look at, and like, of course, I'm deep in Patriots media, right? So like, I'm going through everything. I'm talking, when you look at the RAS score that Gonzalez has and compare it to the first round picks, I believe, and I might be wrong about this stat, but I'm fairly certain in the last, like, say 12, I think it's 10 years, there's been 15 players drafted in the first round, 15 corners drafted in the first round that had an RAS score of 9.9 or above, which he has. All but 2 of them have made either the Pro Bowl or an All-Pro. The 2 that haven't are Bradley Roby, who is a really good slot corner for the Broncos, and J.C. Horn, who lost his entire first year to an injury, and last year played pretty well, but not good enough to get to a Pro Bowl. So it's like, when you start looking at the numbers like that, I look at it and think, like, this kid could be an impact player right off the bat. So you're not wrong that people in New England were pissed about the draft, that they didn't draft offensive guys. But, I felt like they had enough on the offensive line. They didn't have to reach for a guy. They took the best, in my opinion, the best of, certainly the best available player. I thought Gonzalez would go, in the top 10. He was my number one corner in the draft. So, I was happy about the edge guy they got. So I'm not going to go deep into the draft with you, but, because that's not what we're doing. But I do think that they had a better draft than people are giving them credit for, because people just saw the lack of offense and thought, oh, they didn't do enough. But in reality, they got better at some places that they had some holes. Corner was a big need for them, I thought, and getting Gonzalez there, I thought, was huge. So we'll see. I mean, that doesn't obviously help the offense, but I think it does help teams hopefully score a little bit less against the Patriots this year, and we'll see what happens,
I don't want to throw salt on the draft wound, but I think drafting a kicker in the 4th round and a punter at all also didn't help the draft narratives. But I think it's funny.
You're not wrong.
I think it's funny because, like, I feel like the Patriots have unfortunately become like that team that, like, drafts a random player every year, and like that was just one of the, I think the year before, like, you guys drafted like a guard that was like supposed to go in the 3rd round, like in the 1st round, and this year, you took the kicker in the 4th round, and everyone's like, "Is everything okay?" Like, it's just
now. Here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say to you, Max. Is anyone given the San Francisco 49ers grief for drafting a kicker at 99 overall? Because I haven't heard one person say it.
Hey. Hold on a second.
No.
Jake Moody is like the best kicker ever. So
you're not wrong. I love Jake Moody. You're not wrong, right? I love him. has anyone said one word about San Fran taking the kicker 21 spots ahead where the Patriots took a kicker and also trading up for him the way the Patriots did? No one said one word about that, but yet everyone talks about the Patriots drafting a kicker in the 4th round. So like, yeah, sure. Did I want them to take a kicker at 120 overall? Of course not. But like, if they felt like he was the guy and they had to get him, then I trust them and say, go ahead and do it. Like, I wanted Jake Moody as bad as anyone else, but I wasn't taking him at the end of the 3rd round. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair. I'll say this. We don't have to rehash the draft either. I'll say this. I think the reason why, and I struggled with it, it wasn't like an easy call. The reason why I had the Patriots under was because I really feel like I didn't know whether to trust that Bill Belichick and that defense would hold all these teams to like a reasonable amount and then score more points than them, or would the challenge of scoring more points than the other team be harder for the Patriots? Would that be harder than stopping these teams? Because you got a lot of great offenses on the schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, Philly, New York's going to be, again, I think you guys can split the AFC East. I agree with that. I had no issue with that. But, again, like, it's not going to be easy, right? Because the Jets and Bills, like, great offenses. You got, a better offense, theoretically with the Saints and the Broncos, and you got Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Los Angeles, which, point well said about, you guys have been able to beat the Chargers. So I think that's where I struggle to find, like, all right, where are the 8 wins if I'm looking at some of these teams or some of these quarterbacks, and I don't love. And Mac Jones is solid, but I think that's kind of where it's almost like a circular conversation, right? Because it's like, dang, well, you wish the Patriots somehow had better weapons because Mac Jones is solid, but maybe not that guy that's going to elevate talent. And now you're like, all right, are you confident in Mac Jones and Juju Smith-Schuster, even in Bill O'Brien's system? Is that going to be enough to score more points than a lot of these other teams that have like quarterbacks or weapons that you're like, I don't know. Like, even like, I don't love Derek Carr, but like, you got Michael Thomas, Olave, all these other guys that, are going to make plays. Denver, Sean Payton's going to make things happen. Indianapolis, who knows? By then, Anthony Richardson could be, could be pretty nice by then. So it's just tough.
Yeah.
It's just tough. It's just a tough call. I think that if this under goes, it would be a slight under. I think if the over happens, it probably is a slight under as well. I think this is probably between 6 to 8 win team for me, but I just took the under there. But we'll see. I think it's a fast. This is what makes this division so fascinating, because even the Patriots, who, in my opinion, and we'll touch on this later, but in my opinion, this is probably going to be the worst team. Is still going to be a very competitive team for a lot of the year. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. All right. Last
Max,
team.
to your point,
go ahead, please. Yeah, please. Please respond.
I was just going to say, to your point, they're not winning games 17-14 this year, right? They're not. Like, they might win one game 17-14 this year, but they can't consistently do that. They're playing too good of offenses. So the question is, do you trust the offense enough to have them consistently scoring in the mid to high 20s, to win those games, and sometimes above that, right? I do. If you don't, I certainly see you taking the under. I think Mac's going to prove people wrong this year. I think people are going to see a different Tyquan Thornton than they saw last year, and so on and so forth, and we'll go down the line. But that's the question. If you don't think their offense is good enough to score in the mid to high 20s, then yeah, you should take the under. And like I say, I am confident they can score above that, so that's why I took the over.
Yeah, 100%. And I like. I think there was a lot of stuff about Mac and the friction with Bill Belichick. I think that is a small thing to like look at, but I have read more recently that it seems like Mac's attitude's has been a little bit better. At least I don't know if it's towards the media or coaching or whatever, but it seems like things have improved there. So, that's a good sign going into the season as well. But yeah, last team, Miami Dolphins. This seen, um, I've seen a lot of people very high on the Dolphins. Um, this is kind of one where everyone, I'm like the lone person again. You guys all have Dolphins over. I've got them under because I don't love Tua's health, and I think they probably flip flop with the Jets as that team that goes, to the playoffs this year. Because we know that half the teams that go to the playoffs, don't end up going the next year. I think the Dolphins probably take a step back, but a very very good team. Does anyone want to just say why they had the Dolphins over?
I think primarily it's just due to I'm down on the Jets, I'm down on the Patriots. I feel like one of those teams has to kind of squeak out a bit. And I feel like the Dolphins, they have some talent, obviously had their issues last year with Tua's injuries, went through that really rough streak, but I kind of like the way they're trending overall. So that's why I gave Miami the over there.
Oh, Lexi, you're on mute.
Lexi's
you're muted.
Yeah, so it's not so much like like Bobby said, that I'm like high on Miami. It's just that I'm questioning the AFC East outside of Buffalo, in the Patriots and the Jets. So I'm also kind of biased because I want them to do well. My cousin's a huge Dolphins fan, so it's a little bit of both. But Tua gets things together and can stay healthy. I think that it's possible. It's really kind of a toss up outside of the Bills, though, how that division is going to go. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah. The Tua questions are completely valid, and I'm worried about them too. Their defense is also significantly better, right? Trading for Jalen Ramsey was huge, and I think getting Bradley Chubb for the whole year, I think, can make a big difference, right? And so I do think that their defense can be better if Tua can stay healthy. They could push for winning the division. But again, if Tua can't stay healthy, and and he's hurt, and Skylar Thompson's in there again, I mean, you could certainly see them being under where Vegas predicts them.
Yeah, and the line's at 9.5. I don't know if I said that to start with, but definitely. I think a slight under might happen. I think there's it could go well, but it could go miserably as well. I think the Dolphins are like that swing team in the division for sure. Let's jump. I know, Pat, you got to run. Oh, go ahead, Bobby.
I will just a quick sentence. You are you gotta say you are the craziest person in the world if you actually put money on the over on this. You're one to a hit away from this just ripping that ticket up. Do not bet that over. It is too risky.
You're not getting back a ton if you're betting the over on the Dolphins either. So it's like if you're a Dolphins fan, you want to put $5 on it, go ahead. But anything more than that,
Yeah, do you really want to make this bet and then sweat out the entire season being like, is Tua going to be okay? At any play, something bad could happen to him.
Yeah.
Not
absolutely.
fun.
Let's hit this, and then we'll let Pat go. Playoff teams to come out of the AFC East. I've got two. I think the Bills and Jets come out. Again, I just think, if I'm thinking, all right, teams that made it last year aren't going to be back. There's some new teams that are going to be in. I think the Jets are one of the easiest calls for teams that make it, that didn't make it last year. So I think that's an easy call. I think the Bills go back. Again, Dolphins are a big swing team to me, so I don't know about them. And, of course, I think the Patriots are probably going to be and last in this division unless the Dolphins just bottom out. But yeah, I've got the Bills and Jets. What about you? Oh, Pat, you got three teams coming out. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Bills, of course, and I actually have the Dolphins and the Patriots. I think the Dolphins can get to that 10-6, maybe 11. I'm sorry, 10-7, maybe 11-6. And I see the Patriots around 10-7 as well. And again, maybe 11-6. And so I think that's good enough to get them both in with the extra team there, right? You got 7 teams coming out. You have 3 wild card spots. And so I think it's good enough to, and to me, really, it's that Chargers game, right? If the Patriots can beat the Chargers, they have that tiebreaker over them, right? And so that's a big one for me where they can have that tiebreaker over them. And even Denver, right? If you think Denver is going to be better, the Patriots can beat Denver. Now they have the tiebreaker over them as well. And so some of those games are going to be really important for the Patriots if they want to make the playoffs. But I do think that, 10-7 is enough to get a team in. And that's where I think both the Patriots and Dolphins are going to finish. So I think they both make the playoffs.
Yeah, I've got Miami and the Bills going in the playoffs. So it's just kind of like the swap out of the Patriots, I guess. If the other 2 teams falter, that's who I've got going. But I definitely think it's going to be more than one. That's what I'll say. It really could be like any of the 3. It could be 3, but I'm thinking 2 is going to be the max this year. Just given maybe they'll end up beating up on each other a little more. So yeah, Miami and Bills for me.
Yeah, I also got the Bills in Miami here. Of course, Miami, if everything goes right, if everything goes to plan, I think they get right there. But as I just mentioned, you're one to a hit away from that being a disaster. So, yeah, that's my thoughts.
All right, well, that's the AFC East preview. It's been fun. Pat, thanks so much for joining us. It was great to have you. Great show, great insight. Tell everybody where they can find you and your work.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun. So I'm on Twitter at plane_Pats. Always willing to talk Patriots football or fantasy football or Marvel movies or whatever it is you'd like to talk about. If you're into listening to Patriots podcasts, it's Pat's Nation Network. Anywhere you can download podcasts is where you can read that. And if you're into math or school, I have a math TikTok account. It's at Mr. Lane Math. So we have a little fun with that. We made a little a school Terry Tate video, which was a lot of fun to make. So we have a little fun and do a little math. It's fun.
I'm happy you plugged I was going to tell you to plug your TikTok because it's a great account. Math was not my best subject in school, which is why I became a journalist. But I enjoy watching Pat's math TikToks. So definitely go give those a follow.
It's fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for tuning in, y'all. We'll see you guys next time, and y'all be easy. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.